Welcome to the podcast, Use Your Powers for Good. I'm your host, Carolyn Ofer-Moselle, and I am so glad that you're here. This is a podcast to inspire leaders, managers, and supervisors to use your powers for good to put more kindness into the world. Today's guest is Drew Neisser. Drew is CEO and founder of Renegade, an award-winning strategic boutique firm for B2B innovators and chief marketing officers. He's also the founder of CMO Huddles, a fast-growing community for CMOs. Drew is the author of the CMO Periodic Table, A Renegade's Guide to Marketing, and Renegade Marketing, 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands. Drew is passionate about the role marketing can play to make our lives better. We all need marketing in our lives, Drew. I think that's yes.
Well, we
Welcome,
need
Drew.
better. Thank you. Thank you. We need better. And thank you for doing this show. I love the tone and the purpose of it. It's great. And I don't know if your listeners realize how hard it is to produce a podcast and how much time it takes. So they should just thank you. And I'm going to do that for them anyway. So thank you. It's great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. So tell us about Renegade and CMO Huddles, how you got started, why you got started, and just tell us who you help, just tell us about it.
Oh my God. Well, I don't think we have like a long time here. So let me fast forward a little bit because I think it'd be fun. So I've been interviewing chief marketing officers for pretty much the last 10 years. And that started because back in 2008, I wanted to write every week and I wanted to learn every week. And the only way I could do that was to start interviewing chief marketing officers. Well, fast forward 10 years later, I've interviewed over 500, and that's how I got to those two books. But it's my curiosity about CMOs and that the fact that I thought they could be a force for good that started this thing called CMO Huddles back in April of 2020. And that has been, I want to put my goodness hat on for a moment and your listeners too. I didn't start that thinking there would be a business there. I thought that there were a lot of CMOs that were going to be feeling a lot of pain in the beginning of the pandemic. And I knew them, and I knew there wasn't any way for them to connect with their peers. And so we just started talking. I set up these huddles on a weekly basis, and we met 55 times between April 1st and October 1st. And during that period of time, it became very clear there was a business idea here. But it really just started because I didn't know how our business would go, but I knew that if I did something good out there and maybe I helped some people, and I have some unique skills in that I've been interviewing CMOs. And so when I get a group of CMOs together, I can wrangle them. And that's a skill.
That's what I was going to say. I was in politics for a while, and so I know how to wrangle people as well in that instance, but I understand completely.
Yeah. And so being able to do that and build a unique program for them. And so it's funny that in the year and a half since we turned Huddles into a business, Renegade still is in operation, but we really are in service of CMO Huddles. And you don't expect that to happen, particularly at my young age, to be starting a pretty brand new business with a completely different model, with a very sincere purpose, which I'm happy to share with you.
Yeah, well, definitely. Before you go on, tell people who don't know what CMOs are and their roles in businesses.
Thank you for asking that. Yes, chief marketing officers, and it is you talk about a hot seat. If you took an iron and turned it up to its highest point, and then you took 3 or 4 of them and you put them on a chair, the person sitting on all those irons would be the chief marketing officer. It is an impossible role because you've got a CEO with unrealistic expectations, you've got boards with unrealistic expectations, and you have this sense that everybody thinks they're a marketer, so everybody thinks they can do your job. And so it's just a very complicated job. It has a high turnover rate. There's a mismatch between what a CMO can do, what a CEO expects them to do. So some of what we do in CMO Huddles is therapy.
Sometimes people just need to come together with their peers who understand them.
They do. And it's true. And there is a great deal because it's a high pressure job, and it's become even more high pressure during the pandemic. I know a number of them who started the job in, say, April 2020. They never met their team, and they went a year without having met their team. And they had hired without meeting your team. It's been very complicated and difficult. But there's an interesting thing, and this is where, so marketing can be a force of good. I believe that, and I've seen it, and as a practitioner, I've helped that. It doesn't have to be pollution. It can actually drive purpose. It can really transform organizations. It can make them more inclusive. And if you think about marketing as an expression of values, then it's not, you don't feel like, oh my God, this is that hard hitting sales stuff that, they're trying to get me to buy some, wonderful knife, Ginsu knife. That was the one I was thinking of. So part of CMO Huddles is helping CMOs get to the point where they can drive purpose in their organizations. And when they do that, they have a chance to change the world and make the world a little bit better.
I love that. I love what you said about it being an expression of values. I never really thought of it that way, but I can see that distinction between actually sales, trying to sell me something, and marketing, trying to help me to connect with the value that you're bringing to me as the consumer. So I love that distinction.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a little, I love where you went with it, which is not what I was thinking, actually. It's yes, marketers have to be able to show business value in terms of what is in there. It's like if I hold up my book and I say, what value will you get out of reading it? Yes, I have to do that. But I think it's deeper than that. It's an expression of what the company stands for. And for example, if you have certain beliefs and values in the organization, you will make decisions accordingly. You won't run on certain networks. You wouldn't support certain causes. You will support certain causes. You will embrace, important trends. You'll try to be greener, for example, if that's a value, and that can show up in your advertising choices and your marketing choices. So I see the message that you share, if it's informed by purpose, it's a very different kind of thing than it's simply, here are the features of our product or service, and go buy it because it's going to make you rich. It doesn't. And then within that, there's this thing in my book, I talk about this idea that marketing can actually be a service. It could be something of value. And a simple example of that, years ago, we did a program for HSBC, and they wanted New Yorkers to feel like it was a local service. Well, we created something called the bank cab, and it was free to HSBC customers, and it drove around New York, and it was a checker cab. It was a really cool thing, but ultimately it was a service that was marketing. And it's a mindset, and you can do that in B2B or B2C. A lot of content is that way. But if you start to think about your customers as, how can I help them in any way possible? It may or may not have to do with your product or service. It helps if it does. But if you start there, you end up with a very different kind of marketing. And that's what I mean by it can be values driven, because if you're not an organization that has values that say, hey, we want to help people, then you're not going to create marketing that helps people.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so now I see where you were going, and I see what I heard and the difference. The communication is always that tricky thing. People say stuff and other people hear it differently. And that's part of the work that I do as well, in terms of communication, helping people to hear what you really said. So.
And it's funny you should say that. And I tell this to my guests, and I'm sure you do the same, is part of your job as a podcaster is to help people sort of pause the speaker and say, what did they just say? And so I really appreciate that insight. And I don't, again, I'm sort of, we're getting into sausage making here a little bit, but I think it's right. You do, this is what you do. You help the listener find the insight.
Yes.
And clarify.
Definitely. That's what we're here for.
That's it.
So tell me, so when did you start? So did you start during the pandemic?
Well, Renegade has been around a long, long time and has had, CMO Huddles we started during the pandemic. Renegade has been around since, 1993. We were part of a big company, and then I bought that big company out in 2008 and almost went bankrupt, and all sorts of crazy things happened because one of our funders, one of our clients lost a bunch of money in the Madoff scandal, and we didn't get paid, and it was terrible. And so we've been up and down. It's been survival sometimes is a victory.
Yes, I agree. So see, like you said, CMO Huddles has been the core service that you have been providing for the CMO community. And so tell people who are CMOs or who have CMOs in their companies that may want to have them connected to this community. Tell us how to do that.
It's right now we're only supporting business to business CMOs, and CMOHuddles.com is there. We have a size where you have to be the head of marketing, and you have to be at a company at least 35 people or more. And it's only because we're creating cohorts. And so we want to make sure that, and so forth. And it's got all sorts of value. You meet monthly. We've got PR opportunities, recaps, a Slack channel. We arrange one-on-ones. There's a lot of services, and everything sort of, this is so funny because I'm going to go back to our values and what we believe for Huddles. It's like everything goes through the lens of, is it good for the CMO? And so, and I do that, and I write about that a little bit in the book. And if you're a purpose-driven organization, you are probably asking a question like that almost every day. Is this good for our customers? Yeah. And so we think about things like that. And so, for example, we haven't done physical events yet because most of the time, the way physical events are done, you have sponsors. And what that means is you're selling the CMOs to the sponsor, basically, right? Yeah. And so right now, I haven't figured out a way, we will, to figure out a way that this is going to be good for the CMOs, right? And so you make choices like that because you have this North Star, which is it good for the CMOs? And then within Huddles, we have a promise that it's almost like a pledge, which is we bring together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness.
Oh, that's awesome.
Share, care, dare. Those are the three words, and we repeat those all the time. And the dare to greatness in this world right now is more than just being purpose driven. I mean, marketing is notoriously behind from a diversity, equity, inclusion thing. And so that's part of the dare built into CMO Huddles is how do we make marketing more diverse? And it's been part of the program. So we've partnered with the Black Marketers Association of America. We've partnered with Black Girls Code, and we're trying is in this little way to have an impact. But what's amazing is this little group, we touch right now 100 CMOs, and and we're growing, we'll be 200 by the end of next year. So that ends up having a pretty big ripple effect.
That's I can see, and I love that you cast your net wider to make to include more diverse conversations in the work that you're doing. So I commend you for doing that.
It's just it is so important, and I've seen it in our own organization, and I know the CMOs that are in Huddles believe it. They just have to work harder. That's it. You just you have to put it, and you have to be conscious, and you have
Yeah.
to try and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And a lot of them are, yeah, and do it. Yeah.
Now, how many employees do you have?
Right now, 9.
Okay. Nice.
And that we'll grow with huddles, and we'll add more. But part of running a boutique firm is having scarce resources so that you can keep your prices up. We have, right. You make sure that you have just enough capacity to take on maybe a new client now and then, but try to keep it small. We've been, over the course of our time, we were much, much, much bigger. And I love this size. It's like, it literally is just, it's great, and the folks that have been on the team have been on a long time. It's very gratifying.
It's always good to have, that those long-term employees that have the historical knowledge of the company. And so how did you keep them motivated through and as excited as you are about the company?
That's part of that is being adaptive. There have been a couple of times where we've done some pretty strong pivots, where we reinvented ourselves. And I can go way back 20 years ago, where we started almost as a guerrilla marketing agency, and then we became a digital agency, and then sort of evolved in the moment where we were really we were foresighted, and we were, it was a Hail Mary pass was to go into social media 10 years ago, and that saved the company then. But I guess you could say every 5 years, Renegade has been able to adapt to and evolve, and that keeps people interested.
Yeah, I can see that, because I was a city government leader. And I went in, it started in 1991, left, and then came back in 2001. And I had a 5-year plan to stay there. And 25 years later, but things, so I get how things kept being interesting and turning. And so I just lost track of time as I was kind of growing myself. So I can understand how, that is really key to keeping people interested, and that gives them some growth opportunities as well. So that's great. So tell me,
I have a question for you. What got you into, after 25 years in the government, what got you into podcasting?
Well, podcasting is a subset of my leadership coaching and workplace culture consulting. And one of the things that I did when I was preparing to go into consulting was take a business development course. And one of the things that the woman who led that course, Kathy Heller, asked us to do to just get us used to being visible and communicating outside of our normal boundaries, was to start a podcast. And so I was like, okay, so let's see what this does. And like you said, it was a lot of work starting it, and it's a lot of work maintaining it. But it's one of the things that I did not plan to love to do, but I love to do it because I love connecting with people now, all over the country. Yeah. So, I get to meet great people like you, and I've met some other great CEOs. So I didn't plan to be a podcaster, but here we are, Drew.
Yeah, well, that those are sometimes the best things. But it makes sense. I think it's such a privilege to be able to have a podcast, because you get to ask questions, and as you say, and you just keep learning. And that's the best part of it. And I think that learning, I could probably answer how have I kept the employees fresh. Part of it is I've kept myself fresh. And that, I think, is really part of the key of leadership, is if you get stuck and you stop learning, you're really in trouble.
Yes, that's definitely key to keeping yourself refreshed. And so you have a podcast?
I do, yes.
What's the name of your podcast?
It's called Renegade Marketers Unite. We're at about 280 episodes. and it surprise, surprise, features chief marketing officers.
No.
Yeah, really. But I actually, I every 10th episode now, I actually interview myself. I literally set up 2 microphones. It's really silly, but it works. And we also now have a live streaming show called Renegade Marketers Live. And so some of with 3 chief marketing officers who are members of CMO Huddles, and those are now being repurposed as podcasts too. So my mix in Renegade Marketers Unite is a little bit broader than it was. If you go back in the catalog, you'll see 150 CMO interviews in a row. Yeah. So, but that's also, I think this is something for you to think about is that, again, you mix it up a little bit.
That is true. That is true. That's a good, thank you for that. I thought I was interviewing you, Drew.
Well, come on. It's a two-way street. And people don't come to this show to listen to me. They come for you. So let's get you a front and center.
Well, thank you. I'm going to think about that. Thank you. And so we talked, you mentioned about keeping your leadership, keeping yourself fresh as a leader. So what is your leadership approach? What type of leader do you consider yourself? Or what do people tell you that you are?
Oh, I've had various tests. I'm sort of this hybrid writer strategist in terms of, and one of the reasons that I like the small company is I'm also a player manager. I am not one who just wants to, run a business. I like to do the business too. And that was not good when we had 100 employees.
No,
not at all. That is not. It's
no one wanted to see you come down the hall.
No, that's not good. But as for a company of 9, it's great. I do in an ideal world, I live by the principle only do the things that only I can do. And then try to delegate everything else. And if I find things that I can't delegate to, but I don't need to do myself, then I have a problem and I have to solve that. And I'm a late believer in traction and the entrepreneur's operating system. And we use that for Renegade and we're using it for CMO Huddles, which brings some structure to the planning process, because that's not inherently me. In that world, I'm the sort of visionary type, right? Who comes up with the ideas and is out there, but not necessarily the guy who can run the operation as effectively as someone who's more detail oriented. So, I have people working for me who are incredibly detail oriented and are really good at the things I'm not.
And that's important as a leader to be open and understand like where your blind spots are and what support you need so that you can be effective overall. So that's hard sometimes for people to do, especially when you mentioned the D word, delegating.
Yeah. Well, and also I don't have a severe case of ADD, but it's there. And so, look, squirrel as a syndrome for a CEO is very bad too. And so anyway, I have, we all have our demons and we all have the things that we're good at. And, in an ideal world, you're spending more time doing the things that you're good at and you're having others do the things that you have to get done. That's part of it, right? It helps if you can set priorities and stick to it. And really sort of, this is where a good plan can go a long way. And by the way, I can circle this all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. If your organization has a purpose and you know what that is, and we share those values and we say, this is where we want to go, this is what we stand for, then it's really easier for employees to make decisions. That is true.
And you were just reminding me, I did that when I was chief of staff in the city council president's office. We had, all of the things that were priorities as a one pager, so that as people needed to make decisions about what to get involved with or what to recommend the council president gets involved with, et cetera, it needed to like fall inside of that checklist. If it did not, then that's, it's still always, we can have a discussion about it.
Right.
But, I didn't lock everybody in the box and say, don't tell me anything that's not on this list that doesn't fit. But that was very instrumental in just kind of keeping the train on the track, and, everyone on the train as well, which is important.
Oh, it is.
But
I tell you, we talk about this in huddles a lot, is how many different ways you need to know how to say no. One guy figured out there were 7. He had 7 different ways to say no. But, and this is the thing, if you have, this, what derails leaders and teams is when you say everything's important and everything has to get done now. And, it drives people crazy. And right now in the great resignation or whatever you want to call it, really helps to be thinking about, employee mental health and having priorities and taking the stuff that doesn't need to get done now off the list.
Yeah. What are the top things that you need to do just to, make sure that your employees stay healthy, your company stays healthy, and, and overall everyone can get through these tough times. So that's very important. I agree. So tell me, what's your best leadership tip? Your number one, or you want to?
I think number one is what I've already said, which is only do the things that only you can do. It's so simple, and it sounds like that. Because look, if you're a leader, you're running the company, you can do everything. Most likely, you could probably do almost everything as well as anybody else in the company, which is a problem. But so think about the things that only you can do, and those are where you need to spend your time. Now, assuming they align with sort of business growth or your goals, right? But that's, to me, the most important, because I see, we only have a limited amount of time. You could try to double the amount of hours you work, but you probably will, diminishing returns. So we only have a limited amount of time, and I want to figure out how much I can get done in 30 hours.
Yes.
And how much that impacts the growth of the company. And so when I think about that, I know there are a lot of things that we have to do to grow the company, but I'm going to spend my time, and then I'm going to help the others around me appreciate what they're doing, how that aligns with the overall goals of the organization.
Yes. Okay. No, that's a great, that's great in terms of how that's a great leadership tip. And so do you want to share one more or
well, yeah, I do want to say I have this in my book in chapter 1. I talk about clearing away the clutter. And one of the things that I ask the reader to do is take the clear away the clutter pledge. And I'm going to read this pledge to you.
Okay.
I will focus relentlessly on a handful of strategic priorities. I will have the courage to say no to distractions. I will delegate everything except the things only I can do that move the organization forward. I won't add to my to-do list without taking something off of it. And I will block off 30 minutes a day for thinking big. That is the clear away the clutter pledge.
I almost took it until you said, no. Well, no. Taking something off when you put something on. I understand that, but that's something I'll probably have to work on.
Yeah. I've stopped with I don't have a to-do list anymore. I only have a calendar, and if it's not important enough to be on my calendar, and then it gets pushed back.
That's true, because sometimes to-do lists can for that one day can turn into the item getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to, the end of the week, from Monday to the end of the week, or from one week to the other, because apparently you have lessened the importance of needing to do that. So I can understand that philosophy. So read that one more time in case someone wants to adhere to it, and then tell us where we can get your book.
Oh, you want me to read the clear away the clutter pledge again?
I think people need
here
that.
We go. All right. I will focus relentlessly on a handful of strategic priorities. I will have the courage to say no to distractions. I will delegate everything except the things only I can do that move the organization forward. I won't add to my to-do list without taking something off of it, and I will block off 30 minutes a day for thinking big.
No, so I think that was worth a second read, because just knowing how I was when I was in leadership and city government, and and now as an entrepreneur, I feel like people needed to hear that, and I wanted them to be able to hear it, write it down, and then go get your book.
There you go. Well, thank you. Yeah, and my book's available on Amazon, Renegade Marketing, 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands. Yeah, in audio, paperback, soon to be hardcover, and ebook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So any way that you want to receive it, I'm a big audiobook person now. I like listening to the books. But so you have it in every format available, every format that's available. So that's great.
Yeah. And the audiobook is, I actually did it. And it was because I have a fairly decent podcast audience size, and I thought they would think it was weird that I didn't. But I got to tell you, I really appreciate professional voiceover people. And now, my wife said it was okay, which is, she's tough. So I guess I passed, but oh my gosh, that was hard.
So how many pages is your book?
175. So it's a 6-hour listen. It's a 6-hour listen. You put it at 1.25 speed, you'll get through it in 4 hours.
Well, congratulations on your books, and congratulations on being the voice of your book, because I can imagine, that was a new space for you probably, and now you're pro.
There you go. No, doing it one time only makes you appreciate. Here's one other funny thing for any potential author out there. One great thing about reading your own book is that you will find typos, and when you do it out loud, it's the only way to be sure that you got everything.
Interesting. No, that's good to know. That's good to know. Because I plan to write a book.
Good.
I have one in me, so I plan to write one. So that's some food for thought.
Awesome.
So Drew, tell me, how do you put more kindness into the world?
So I heard you ask this question on a couple of your other shows, and it's funny. I think about my dad. He's 95, and all the little things that he's done in his life. He always remembers people's names. He's one of these guys who, even at the checkout of the grocery store, knows the names, and always would be the guy who would take the shopping cart back from the parking lot all the way to the front, and he would take others. And it's just, I have to say, and then so I try to keep his little angel on my shoulder and think about him and what he would do. Probably the way I'm generally a nice person to people. I try pretty hard about that. But I would say, if you send me an email or a LinkedIn message and you say, "Hey, Drew, I need some help," I respond. And I've responded and helped a lot of people in their careers over the last, 30 years. And that makes me feel good. And, even in huddles, we have a group. If you're a CMO and you're out of work, we have a transition team that's free.
Oh.
And, I wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But it feels right.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, that's putting more kindness into the world, because, as you know, when you are kind to others, they are likely to be kind to other people as well. And so, spreading of kindness is the best thing that we could do in this world now, especially now.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, yes. Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
know. We just any way we can. I so appreciate you and that message and none of us are perfect, but we can try.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We can try. We can
Yeah.
try. So tell our audience how to connect with you if they are, well, if how to connect with you. You told us
Sure.
how to get your books, but if there's anything else you would want people to know with connecting with you.
Sure. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Drew
Mhm,
Neisser. You can find
mhm,
me there, or you go to renegade.com and there's a lot of, you can find Drew all over that.
okay. So Drew's all over the place.
Yeah, he's all over.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a delight to have you. I love your energy. I love your spirit and your brightness and everything. I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for bringing that energy to my guests. I appreciate my audience. I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you and your show and the energy that you're putting into it and the message that you're sharing. So thank you for having me, Caroline.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So until next time, be better today than yesterday. Be better tomorrow than today. Bye for now.